The church hall was silent. It was the kind of silence that feels heavy, almost too heavy to breathe in. Every seat was taken, and people stood along the walls. Some wore black suits, while others came in colorful shirts like the ones Hulk Hogan used to wear in the ring. They were all here for one reason: to say goodbye to the man they thought would never leave them. Hulk Hogan was gone, and that truth was harder to accept than anyone expected. For many people, Hulk Hogan was a hero they watched on TV. But to his family, friends, and the people whose lives he touched, he was something more. He wasn't just a giant with muscles. He was a man with a giant heart. I remember one fan, a boy named Michael, who had cancer. When Hogan heard about him, he didn't just send a signed photo. He went to the hospital, sat by Michael's bed, and told him, "Brother, you're stronger than me, because you're fighting the real fight." Michael's parents later said that visit gave their son hope in his last days. That was the real Hogan, a man who fought battles outside the spotlight. The funeral was like a wrestling event in one way. It's the anticipation before he appeared. Only this time, he wasn't walking through the curtain to cheers. This time, his casket rolled slowly down the aisle, covered in flowers. Some fans wiped tears, while others whispered his famous catchphrases under their breath, as if saying them could somehow bring him back. A close friend and fellow wrestler, Jimmy Steele Carter, stepped up to the microphone. His voice cracked as he spoke. We all knew him as a champion in the ring. But outside, he fought for kids, for charities, and for people who didn't even know his name. He was bigger than the sport. Hogan didn't start as a superstar. He worked at a small gym, barely making enough to pay rent. But one night, a wrestling promoter spotted him lifting weights and asked if he'd ever considered wrestling. The rest was history. Within 5 years, he was the face of wrestling. His matches drew millions of viewers. Kids wore his t-shirts. His theme music made crowds roar before he even entered the arena. But while other wrestlers faded when the cameras turned off, Hogan found new ways to matter. He visited children's hospitals, raised money for disaster relief, and spoke openly about his own struggles, so fans would know it was okay to ask for help. During the tribute, a video played on a big screen showed clips of his match's body. Slams, leg drops, victories. But it also showed him shaking hands with firefighters, hugging veterans, and laughing with children at charity events. One clip stood out. It was from 1998 when a hurricane destroyed homes in Florida. Hogan walked through the rubble, handing out supplies. A reporter asked why he was there, and he replied, "Because if I can fight in a ring for a title, I can fight out here for people who lost everything." That one sentence summed up his life. Some speakers at the funeral compared Hogan to Muhammad Ali. Both were entertainers and fighters who used their fame to help others. Others compared him to Elvis Presley, a cultural icon who shaped a generation. But one fan, in a quiet voice, said it best: Hogan was like your favorite Uncle Famous. Funny, but still someone you could trust. His daughter Lisa spoke with tears running down her face. "He wasn't perfect, but he was perfect for us," she said. "When I was little, I didn't care that he was on TV. I just cared that he came home, read me bedtime stories, and told me he loved me." His son Mark added, "He taught me that strength isn't about how much weight you can lift. It's about how much pain you can carry for the people you love." As the service ended, the crowd stood. One by one, they walked past the casket, some placing flowers, others laying down wrestling belts or fan signs from past events. A young boy placed a toy action figure of Hogan on top of the casket, whispered, "Bye, champ," and walked away. There wasn't a dry eye in the room. Hulk Hogan's career had ups and downs. There were times when tabloids wrote harsh things about him, times when injuries kept him out of the ring for months. But he always came back, not because he needed fame, but because he felt his fans needed him. He started the Strong Hearts Foundation, which helped kids with serious illnesses meet their heroes. He funded scholarships for students who couldn't afford college, and he never stopped showing up when people needed hope. One of his oldest friends, trainer Jack Reynolds, shared a story at the funeral. "We were on tour in Japan once, and after a match, instead of going back to the hotel, Hogan disappeared. I found him outside, sitting on the curb with a young fan who had waited for hours. They didn't speak the same language, but they laughed like old friends. That was him always making time for people. Not every celebrity uses their fame for good. Some take from the world without giving back. He used his voice to speak for people who didn't have one. He once said in an interview, "When you're famous, you can choose shine the light on yourself or shine it where it's dark. I chose the dark because that's where people need it most." In wrestling, when a wrestler passes away, they sometimes do a 10-bell salute. The sound is slow and haunting. At Hogan's funeral, the bell rang 10 times. With each ring, people bowed their heads a little lower. When it was over, there was silence again, not just sadness, but respect. Outside, the Hall fans gathered, sharing their favorite memories. One man said he met Hogan at a gas station, and the wrestler insisted on paying for his fuel. Another remembered when Hogan visited their town after a flood and helped rebuild a playground. It was clear Hogan didn't just play a hero. He was one. From his life, we learn that success means nothing if you keep it to yourself. Hogan taught that even when you were at the top, you should reach down and lift others up. He showed that kindness can be louder than any cheer from a crowd. As the sun set that day, someone played his entrance music quietly in the background. People smiled through tears. Felt like he was walking out one last time, waving to the fans, telling them, "I'll see you again, brother." Even days after the funeral, tributes kept pouring in from around the world. Fans lit candles outside wrestling arenas, some wearing his trademark bandana, others carrying handmade posters with his quotes. Social media was flooded with stories short, videos of meet and greets, rare backstage moments, and heartfelt letters from people who said Hogan inspired them to never give up. A mother shared how her shy son gained confidence after Hogan told him, "Stand tall, even when you feel small." These moments showed that his reach went far beyond the ring. In one particularly touching message, a former rival wrestler wrote, "We fought hard in the ring, but outside we were brothers." He was the kind of man who could make you laugh after the worst day of your life. It was a reminder that even those who stood opposite him during his most intense matches saw him as more than an opponent, they saw him as a friend. This mutual respect, rare in the competitive world of wrestling, spoke volumes about his character. Hogan's impact was not limited to sports or charity. He inspired people in the military, law enforcement, and everyday workers. A retired firefighter recalled meeting him at a community event. "He shook my hand and said, 'You're the real hero.' I never forgot that," the firefighter said. Such humility made people feel valued no matter their background. His fame never created a wall between him and the people who admired. Emmett built a bridge. During the days that followed, several wrestling promotions held special shows in his honor. Matches began with a spotlight on the empty entrance ramp, and his music played as the crowd stood in applause. Wrestlers wore armbands with his initials, and fans chanted his name in unison. For a brief moment, it felt like he was still there. Larger than life, watching over the sport he loved, Hulk Hogan is gone, but his story remains. He proved that a person can be larger than life and still have time for the smallest acts of kindness. He showed that fame is not the measure of a man, character is. Now I want to ask you, if you had the same fame, strength, and platform as Hulk Hogan, would you use it for yourself, or would you use it to lift someone else? Because that choice is the real difference between being remembered and being unforgettable.